when we get older and it's a little more difficult to move around, it's possible that we might stop working and do something called retire. And retirement is really exciting because it means that you've built up enough money to where you don't have to work anymore, but you can still live comfortably. Now, back in 1935, there was a Social Security Act passed. And think about that term, Social Security. We're taking care of people, specifically our older people. And what that act said was, we're going to take a certain amount of your paycheck when you're younger every single year. We're going to take just a little bit of tax, a little bit of tax, a little bit of tax. And then when you retire, we'll give that back to you so that you can have money to live. That's called Social Security. Now, later on, there was another act passed to help people with their medical bills, because in addition to buying food and transportation and maybe paying some of your housing bills, you also have medical bills. So there's a Social Security tax that comes out of your paycheck. There's also a Medicare tax that comes out of your paycheck. So those are two government-mandated, federal government-mandated taxes that come out of your paycheck. So when you see it there, and you see Social Security tax and Medicare tax, you'll now know what those are contributing to. You, when you're gray and older. Let's take a look at how they work. Social Security tax is 12.4%. Medicare tax is 2.9% on your paycheck. So 12.4% of your paycheck is taken out every single pay period, whether that's weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. And Medicare tax as well, weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. Whenever you get paid, you'll notice these deductions. But I've got some good news for you. Your employer, the organization you work for, will actually split that with you. 50-50. Right? So you, the employee, you're going to pay half of this. And the employer is also going to pay half. So this will be 6.2%, which is half of 12.4%. And the employer will pay half as well. So you all split your taxes right down the middle, which is really nice, because then instead of the full 12.4% coming out of your paycheck, it's only 6.2%. Same thing with Medicare. Right, so for your medical benefits, you're going to pay half of this obligation. So you, the employee, you'll pay half, and your employer will pay half. So 1.45% is half of 2.9%. So knowing that you only have half of each of these to pay is a really good thing. It's something that gives you little butterflies inside. You're like, oh, thank goodness, I have to pay less tax. And your employer is like, well, you better work hard because I'm paying half of your Social Security and Medicare taxes for you. Now, there is a time and a place where you're actually going to have to pay all of this tax. And that's if you are deemed a contractor. Okay, I'm going to write this down here. Very important word. A contractor is someone who does temporary work for a business. As a result, they are designated as not an employee. So a contractor is somebody who might develop logos for a different business. So if you have a concrete business and then you hire somebody out to build the logo for your concrete business, you're hiring a contractor. That contractor is going to have to pay the full 12.4% and the full 2.9% for Social Security and Medicare taxes. So contractors get hit double. which is tough, right? So if you ever are working as a contractor, please remember that you're going to have higher taxes than if you had been an employee working in a long-term capacity with an organization. Very, very important distinction. Employee, contractor. You gotta know, because one, the employee is gonna pay half of these taxes versus the contractor. So what does this actually turn out to be in terms of dollars? Well, if we are making $30,000 a year, and we want to understand what Social Security tax is going to be, then we're going to need to multiply this by 12.4%. Right? And over here, we can remember 12.4. Whenever you have a percent, you need to move the decimal back 2 places. Right? So we're going to multiply this by 124 thousandths. Okay? So I'm actually going to flip this around because I want the one with more non-zero digits on top. Okay, and I'm just going to multiply it by 3 because I know that I have all of these zeros, and I'll use those zeros to help me do the math in a minute. So 124 times 3, we get 12. 3 times 2 is 6 is 7. And 3 times 1 is 3. So I get 372. So what do I need to do with these in terms of our final value? Well, we know we've got 124 thousandths, and we've got 30 thousands here. Thousands and thousandths will divide away to create 1. All right, so those basically eliminate each other, but we still have this last 0. So you're going to owe $3,720 of your original $30,000 salary in Social Security tax. So I'm going to write that here as Social Security tax. How can you gut check that? Because we were doing a lot of place value stuff. Well, 12.4%, an easier number to think about is 10%. What would be 10% of 30,000? Oh, we just divide by 10. That's 3,000. You see how close we are? All right, so always do a little bit of gut checking when you're playing around with different mental math skills, because you don't want to miss a 0 or one way or the other. So what's the good news here? The good news here is that's the full 12.4%. If you're actually an employee and you actually work for somebody long term, then you're only going to owe half of that. So I can divide this number, 3,720, I could divide that by 2. Right? So that is going to be, that goes in 1 time. Okay, bear with me. I'm going to write this where we can see it a little bit clearer. 3,720, divide that by 2. And that goes in 8 times. So we have 16. 12 goes in 6 times, and then we have the 0. So 1,860, that is our actual Social Security tax obligation for the year, right? Which is more manageable than the full 3,720. So you're really lucky that, or happy rather, that you're an employee at this point, because you only had to pay half of those taxes. The employer has to pay the other half. But that's not all. This was just Social Security tax. Let's look at Medicare tax. Medicare tax would be 2.9% on our 30,000. So we're still making 30,000. Let's figure out how much we would owe if we had to multiply by 2.9%. Again, we're going to move this over 2 places. So this is going to be 29 thousandths. Okay. All right, I'm going to put the number with more non-zero digits on top to make the math a little bit easier. So 27. 3 times 2 is 6, and 2 more is 8. Right, so we have 87. And we're thinking, what are we going to do with all of this? We've got thousandths and thousands, right? So we've got 30,000 and 29 tens, hundredths, thousandths. Right, so those divide to create 1, so those will be eliminated there, but we still have this 1 0 here, which we need to put at the end. So $870 is how much we would owe in Medicare taxes if we were a contractor, because that's the full 2.9%. But we're working for somebody. We're an employee. So we only owe half of that. So we can go ahead and divide this number by 2. So 870, divide that by 2. Doing the standard algorithm here. Goes in 3 times. All right, so $435. You see over here is your half of the Medicare tax. So in terms of what you're actually going to see deducted from your paycheck each year, you'll owe $1,860 in Social Security tax, and you'll owe $435 in Medicare tax. One final note. They're not always called Social Security tax and Medicare tax on your paycheck. Sometimes it's just 4 letters. Right? Let me make a little bit more space here so you can see these 4 letters. These 4 letters are F-I-C-A, or FICA. So you might see FICA, and then you'll see these exact numbers taken out of your paycheck and be like, who's FICA? And why are they taking my money? FICA is Federal Insurance Contribution Act. Okay, so basically what you're doing is you're offering insurance for when you get older. You're paying in a little bit now so that when you get older, you can get that money back to take care of yourself. So FICA, if you see FICA, just know that stands for your Social Security tax and your Medicare tax, in case those aren't split out individually. So you'll be on the lookout for FICA, Social Security tax, and Medicare tax, because those are going to be dollars that are coming out of your paycheck. But don't worry, folks. That's to take care of all of us when we get a little bit older. Have a great day.